What's up, Airheads? You are listening and now watching to the Now Airing podcast with your host, Tyler Ahring, where we talk about all things sports, music, and all the above. Today, on my first ever attempt at a video podcast, I chose this guest because he's so darn good looking. I knew he would look great on camera. You saw it in the opening title screen. We have Shane Nix here with us today. Shane, how you doing?
You stole the joke right from my mouth there. I was about to say you could have started with a better-looking guest for your first live video, but maybe Coach Dave or somebody else.
Oh, Shane, I don't believe that at all. I think you look fantastic. You look absolutely fantastic, and I want to say thank you first off for joining me on the podcast. We've been talking about it for a while, but I've been in a little bit of a podcast slump lately. You know how it is with kids, work. It just gets busy. Yeah, no, I can completely understand that. Just with kids, you never know what kind of chews up your evening very quickly. Absolutely. Well, anyways, let's go ahead and get started. The first thing that I want to say is I think Shane is one of the most not only figuratively but also literally looked up to people in our town, especially for people around my age. I got to go to school with Shane. And let's just jump right into it, Shane. How long have you lived in the Owensville community? Let's start there. Yeah, so I was raised in the area my whole life. My parents and grandparents are both from the area. I would really say, except for the 4 years I went to college, and then 2 years after that I took a job in Indiana. Outside of those 6 years, I've been here the entire time of my life, so not too many years away. And do you live in Owensville, Rosebud, Gerald? Where do you actually live? So I am probably one of the first or second houses with a Bland address on Highway Y. So if you're going out past Peaceful, I'm another maybe 3 miles on Highway Y. And it's still Owensville School District, but just the way the mail route goes, it's a Bland mailing address. Okay, that makes sense. So there was never any question about whether you were going to go to Owensville or Bland, or was that like did you have an option? Well, so that's where I live now. That's where my wife and I have built a house and live there. When I grew up, my mom still lives in the same house I grew up in, which was on Price Road, which you're probably familiar with from absolutely, days, doing cross country down 4th Street. I think like Price Road, that's where like all the Mortzes lived, didn't it? Yeah, so Ashton Mortz would have, your wife obviously, would have been my next door neighbor whenever we were both, she would have probably been in diapers. I've probably enough older. Very little. Been. But yeah, they lived there until I was probably maybe, I don't know, 1st or 2nd grade, I would guess. But yeah, I've been their next door neighbor, and Jimmy Mortz, which would be Taylor's dad, lived directly behind our house. And then the Hangstenberg, which is also Mort's, relation there. They were all right there in a circle. So you grew up here. You went to school here at elementary school. You went to OES, I assume, correct? Yes. And then OMS and OHS. What has it been like for you, just getting to grow up in the community, and not just speaking about school, but just the community in general? Yeah, I think it. I would say blessed, and not necessarily just Owensville, but definitely Owensville for me. But just to be in a small community where, and maybe because my parents and grandparents are very social butterflies, but I feel like even if I didn't know people, they always knew me, which could obviously be a bad thing, I guess, if you're getting in trouble. But if you're just out doing something in town, people will come up to you and start talking to you that you really don't even know. Oh, you just know that they know your parents. There's probably people to this day that I've talked to for 10 or 15 years that might not even know their name, but I just know that I know them. I might even know what they do, but don't know if I've ever been introduced to them. I totally understand what you're talking about, because the bowling alley, people would know my dad or my family or my grandma or something like that, and they saw me run around when I was a little kid, and they're like, "Oh, I haven't seen you in so long," and I'm like, I don't know if I've ever seen you, but you have not. We're going to get to this later, but I feel like that is really who you are, though. Even when you went to college, because when you went to college, we went to the same college together, but I can remember walking around campus and every single person knew who Shane Nix was. Yeah, I don't know exactly what the reason was, but I just I was in a lot of different clubs and different things, but I just like to go talk to people and walk into class. If I didn't leave really early, I'd be late because I would stop and have several conversations on the way to class. That was kind of the running joke with some of my buddies that lived with me. They were like, "We're not going to walk to class with you anymore because we're always running behind." But
yeah, no, I'm sure we'll get to that later. But that is one thing I loved about UCM. Kind of the same feel as you can be a big fish in a small pond, or not necessarily that you need to be a big fish, but you know everybody, So, and that's what I thought. For the Owensville community, my mom's really worked in town the whole time. My dad's always farmed, so he knows multiple people in the community. And my grandma, actually, my great grandma was a teacher at Owensville years ago, and well before it'd be like our parents' age would know her. And so I guess my whole family's kind of been in the community off and on. So just like you said, just knowing everybody, there's something about it. I just enjoy that fact that you don't feel like a stranger.
Absolutely. And I know there's some people that would think of basically the things that we look like that as a positive. They think of that as a negative, but it's one of those things where I've been here so long. It's so funny because I'll have people from other places like, well, what do you even do in that town? And I would imagine you can attest to this as well. I'm never bored here. I have plenty of things that I could go do or people I could go see. It's not a lack of, options on things to do, but I think people who are maybe from like a bigger city, they have a hard time understanding that.
Yeah, and like I'm sure part of it is that we grew up not going to the mall every day or every weekend or the movies or whatever, but we made our own fun, and I think I know you've touched on some of their podcasts, but just whether it's not having growing up without cell phones when you're real young or whatever, but just you go out and you make fun and you'll find something to do as a kid, and then as you get older, it seems like you don't have enough time to do anything anyway. So
that is very true. That is very true. So let's segment into let's talk about middle school life. Obviously, I know because I know you were big into sports and whatnot. At what age did you really start playing sports? Was it middle school? Was it before middle school? Because school sports don't start until middle school. But were you playing before?
Yeah. So I started playing basketball, I would say, in 4th grade. I think was the first year where you could have basketball. And then football, I believe we started in 5th grade. And I think we were one of like 3 teams that had 5th grade teams. The rest of the schools we played had 6th grade teams. We were playing up. So we were terrible our 5th grade year, but then our 6th grade year, we were good. Really good. Not that necessarily translated to later in life, but for a year, that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I can remember watching you guys play, and I can remember at that point in time, especially middle school, Justin Duncan was like untouchable.
Yeah, he was so much faster than everybody. It was basically we would like run a sweep to the left or a sweep to the right.
And Justin would be gone.
Yeah, and we ran the option play as we got later into like 7th, 8th grade quite a bit, where the quarterback would pitch it out to him. But yeah, Justin Duncan was for that age range was incredibly fast, or quite a bit faster than everybody else.
He was also big too. I feel like he matured faster than everybody else, so he was just big, fast, and strong.
Yeah, he wasn't like overbearingly big like some of them. I don't remember how big like Brett Nelson was in middle school, but I know like I got to high school and Nelson was just he was not as tall as me, but bigger than me playing running back and 10 times more athletic. But Duncan wasn't like that size in middle school, but he was definitely not like it wasn't like he was just the smallest kid that happened to be fast. He was definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's just very athletic. Nelson, it's interesting that you say him. I had been thinking about reaching out to him to have him on the podcast at some point too. He would be a cool one to listen to. I'm sure he's got some stories.
Yeah, he was a class ahead of me, but which I'm sure you knew that. But yeah, he would be a fun one. Their class in general.
Oh man, they were very athletic.
Yeah, between Brian Decker and Zeb Dintelman and Nelson, and even giving some love to the big guys. You had Charlie Meyer and Colby Baker for the football, goes, and Josh Channing was another big one. And their whole class on football was. Oh my gosh, yeah. And then Angel, can't forget about Angel and Cooper. And,
yeah, you can maybe make an argument that Matt Angel might have been the best of that bunch, but. While we're on this topic, and this happens several times during the podcast, but while we're on this topic, you named off like Dintelman and Decker and Baker and all of those guys. I don't know if it's just because I was a freshman in high school and those guys look like giant monsters. They were just so big. But when I go to like football games now or basketball, I don't see people that are that size anymore, I don't feel like. Do you agree with that, or do you think it's just my perception of being a small freshman?
I don't know, because, obviously I don't see a lot of the high schoolers anymore because we haven't been to as many football games as I would like. But I do think that they, as a class, that had to have been one of the biggest classes.
Like size-wise.
They also had a number of people, big class as well. But yeah, size-wise, that line group that they had was huge. I want to say that, and I was obviously in 8th grade, but I want to say in their freshman year, I think Brian and Zeb both might have played like receiver.
What?
Or tight end, and then they got converted to
smokes.
offensive line their like sophomore or junior year because of a need, because they were so much bigger.
Right.
But I think if I'm right, I could be wrong on this because I think I was obviously still in middle school, but I think they both started as skilled positions and then moved to line. But I could definitely be wrong on that too.
Well, that bodes well for a lineman, for sure, because not only are you big and strong, but you have the agility, the quickness, if you were doing those kinds of things when you were a freshman. But, yeah, those guys, I can't even in my head imagine them as like a wide receiver type player because they were so big.
Yeah, I know for a fact that Zeb was either a tight end or a receiver early on, but I don't know for sure about Brian. But, yeah, they were both high school. When it came to high school football, they were both ahead of me. Like, I always played behind them. I was either defensive end, which they were both D ends, and they were both offensive tackles. So I wasn't near as talented as they were either. But I had no hope trying to start behind either one of those two. I think they were all state, either first team or second team, both their junior and senior year. I think. I could be off, but I know they were for sure their senior year.
Well, don't cut yourself short because I do want to talk about all the sports you played. So, obviously, you played football because you kind of hit on that a little bit. But I know you played basketball. Did you ever play baseball? Was that ever anything you did?
Yeah, so back to your original question, I guess I did play baseball,
Like
T-ball all
and
the
up.
way up. And then I quit playing baseball either in 8th grade or going into high school. I know I never played in high school. I might have not played my 8th grade summer. I was never really that good at it. As you can probably imagine, even most of my freshman and sophomore year, I was still very uncoordinated, and you could probably argue all the way through high school career I was uncoordinated, but that did not bode well for baseball. With football, you can get away with being uncoordinated and big, and basketball, with my size, I could obviously do at least a little bit in the early stages, but baseball was never one that the coordination was.
Yeah, I always tell people I don't even think you have to be athletic to be good at baseball. You have to have really good hand-eye coordination, and then if you have really good hand-eye coordination, a lot of the other things kind of figure themselves out. Being athletic helps, but that's not what makes you hit a baseball. You look at a lot of great athletes, and they can't hit a baseball because it's just a whole different thing, really. But did Coach Candrell ever twist your arm about track in high school? And did you ever do track?
So I did track, I think, my sophomore and junior year. So Candrell's first year as a coach, I believe, was my first year doing not cross country but track. And
I believe you're correct. Yeah.
I just threw. So I did shot put and discus, and I think I don't remember. One year, me and Woody did it together, Schlottig, and we both did it. And Candrell let us work out with the sprinters a couple days a week or the jumpers, just because the whole reason we were doing it was to get more coordinated for basketball and football. So, but obviously we had to compete with throwers because that's what we were supposed to be doing. So,
Right.
But every once in a while he'd have us do drills with different position groups to work on coordination. And then
Was coordination something Woody struggled with?
no, Woody was always really coordinated. He was just
Slower.
Yeah, not slower than me, but just slower for
Now,
as skilled as he was.
Woody played basketball, but wasn't he like a quarterback at some point too?
He was a quarterback, I think, our JV teams, and then he probably would have been on track to be our quarterback our senior year, but he tore his rotator cuff or something on his shoulder, so he had to sit out our senior year of football.
Oh, okay.
And then,
'Cause for some reason, I remember him playing quarterback at some point.
yeah, and so it was kind of funny because I think on JV, a lot of times it would be Klausner and Woody were like first and second team quarterback. I'm not sure exactly what order, but they would play different games. And Woody was so much slower, definitely for like a quarterback. And it was almost funny because he would still juke people out, and I could never like picture it, but he would. But he was actually really athletic, everybody
For sure.
And as we got to basketball, for sure, did really well.
Yeah, I can remember. I really enjoyed First off, we'll get to this later, but your senior year, that team of basketball, that was probably. I watched a lot of basketball in Owensville now because I'm a teacher here, obviously, and I go to a lot of the games. But man, that was such a fun environment, and your group was so fun to watch. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But okay, so Candle did twist your arm. You did do a little bit of track. Did you enjoy track? Was it something that you enjoyed?
I really did. And as most people do, I didn't do it my senior year because the whole reason I was doing it was
for other sports.
But going back, I really should have done it. And Coach Kendra Leslie always does. He kind of talks to you throughout the year. He's like, man, you should have threw this year. He's like, the competition's done. You would have been, all confident, whatever. He was. I don't know, and I don't even know if there was any truth in it. But I definitely got a lot stronger between my junior year and senior year. So I think I would have probably competed a lot better at that. But yeah, I threw as I want to say my sophomore year. Me and Terry Nix were both. I think we were the two varsity throwers.
Oh wow, okay.
Because I don't think there was many people above us age-wise throwing. So we were both throwing shot put. And I think Christian record was for sure a junior, but maybe even the sophomore year he was
throwing discus.
And then either me or Terry would usually alternate with him. But neither one of us were as good as Christian was at discus. And Terry, I don't think he stuck with track, but he would have probably been pretty good. His sister Courtney,
she was a real good shot put thrower, right?
Yeah, I think she held some school records for quite some time. I don't know if they probably might have been surpassed now, but when she graduated, she held, I think for sure the shot put and maybe even the discus. I don't know.
I think you're right. I think she had both of them. Okay, now here's a question, and I only ask because I actually truly don't know. So my freshman year, I know, was Coach Candrell's first year of cross country and track, I think. So your sophomore year, right?
Correct. That's probably right. Yeah.
So I know, just because I know more about cross country, that before Coach Candrell was Coach Barndollar. That was the cross country coach, which is kind of funny just because Coach Barndollar doesn't really strike you as the guy that would be the running coach.
Yes. Yeah.
But do you know who was the track coach your freshman year? Because I don't.
It might have still. It might have still been Hayner and Crow because Coach Crow was still coaching football at that point in time. She coached football all the way through. I guess he was obviously on the state team, and I think was that his
last year? Was it Schminke after that?
I think so. I think Schminke was my junior and senior year. I'm almost 100% sure.
Well, okay, the state team would have been my freshman year.
Correct, my sophomore year.
So like Nathan Cooper would have been a senior the following year, so your junior year, right?
Yes.
Surely Coach Crow stuck around for that.
I think he did, but maybe Coach Schmenke was on staff. I just remember Coach Schmenke, Union was the team to beat that year. I can't think of the
Your junior year?
My junior year, their senior
Jordan
year.
Webb.
Yes, and I just kind of remember Schmenke was kind of implementing some kind of defense, and we ended up working on it for like 2 weeks, and we ended up beating them. And so I know he was there for that, but I don't know if that was
his first year head coach.
If he was head coach, or if he was like an assistant to Coach Crow and then took over the next year. I don't know for sure.
Well, I can tell you this. After the podcast, we'll figure it out, and we'll be like, oh, now.
Yeah.
And then if we look back at the podcast, years from now, we'll be like, oh, I remember that because we looked it up after. Okay, so out of the sports that you played, though, is it fair to say that basketball was definitely your favorite?
Definitely as I got older into high school.
Okay.
When I was younger, I probably liked football more.
Okay.
So I was always able to start at football. Basketball, even though I was tall, I wasn't always starting. So, middle school, Christian was a beast down low. I mean, he was actually almost a foot taller than me. Not a foot, but he was taller than me, and I was already pretty tall. And he was 10 times more coordinated. So he was really good, like
at the
4th, 5th, 6th grade level. Well, even 7th, 8th grade.
Okay.
Yeah, but he was always really good. So I didn't enjoy it as much, and I was not as good at it comparatively as I was at football because I was just big and I could fill space in football enough to play offensive line, defensive end, defensive tackle, whatever. So I think I enjoyed it more when I was younger and then enjoyed basketball a little more as I got kind of grown into my body a little more.
Okay, let's hone in on just basketball. We'll talk about basketball for a while here. So you start playing school basketball whenever you are in the 7th grade. Do you know who your coaches were before 7th grade?
Yeah, so I wanted to say that because I was listening to Brad Smith's a while back.
Yes.
And he was trying to remember who the coach was. And it was really funny because in 8th grade he couldn't remember who our coach was, and that was Altmaier, who also ended up being the JV coach in high school.
Oh, so you had them back-to-back, kind of.
Yeah, so it was funny. It was just funny that Brad forgot him because he was a coach for so long.
Right.
But maybe that the blurriness of it all probably. But, so in 4th, 5th, and 6th grade, or 4th and 5th grade, I'll start there, was Derek Tyree's dad, Dale Tyree.
Okay, yeah.
And then Brett Schaefer-Cutter's dad, Brian, and then my dad, which is John Nix. And so those three coached 4th and 5th grade. And then 6th grade, which is the last year before school ball, they split off and made 2 teams. So they had the A team, which was pretty much everybody that played in 4th and 5th grade, except for me and Brad Smith and Ethan Jors. And then I think we had 15 kids total on our team, maybe 18. So they consolidated the 4th and 5th grade team because we had a big team already. And then they basically gave the opportunity for everybody else that wouldn't have been able to make the team to make the team. And that's not saying I'm
right. I get what you're saying.
But if they haven't played before, so yeah, we make it. And I think Larry or Ethan George should have probably been on the other A team.
Right. I think I've heard this story before.
But basically, I think his dad's like, I don't know whether he felt bad for us or what, but he's like, these guys. So Larry was our point guard, and he was probably the only true star of that team.
So one thing, and it's funny that you brought Larry up because I was thinking about him earlier when we were talking about football. Because I know when you guys were in middle school, we call him Larry because his dad's name is Larry.
Yeah.
But his name is actually Ethan. But didn't Ethan play quarterback when you guys were in middle school?
Yes, we had Mike Canahans for a while as our middle school football coach.
Okay.
And Ethan was our quarterback all the way until high school. I don't think he played in high school.
I don't think he played in high school though.
Maybe he just played our freshman year, but he definitely didn't play. He either didn't play his freshman year and on, or he didn't play after that. So, but he was really good. I would have liked him to have kept playing. But.
And Ethan, I got to know Ethan really well because he was a baseball player. He was a great baseball player, great pitcher, could hit well, played first base. But did he play basketball too? I felt like he played basketball too, didn't he?
He did, I think, all the way up until high school as well.
Huh.
So, yeah, he could have really been good at all three, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. He was first of all, he was also very intelligent, very smart. And I think, being smart bodes well in all athletics all the time. But, yeah, he was just athletic too.
Yeah.
Okay, so you had the split teams when you were younger, but then when you get to 7th grade, it's got to all come together. There's only one team at that point, correct?
Yeah, so that team was coached, I believe it was Danny West was our coach then.
Oh, that's right.
So I'm pretty sure he coached our middle school year, our 7th grade year, and then Coach Altemeyer would have been our 8th grade coach because I think there was a time your one coach would take you 7th grade and 8th grade, and then there was a time they switched, and I think we had both. I know for sure we had Altemeyer in 8th grade, and I'm 99% sure we had West in 7th grade.
Do you know at what point? Because I know that for a while it was like Bruce and Mark had. I think that was when Boyd was in.
Yeah, so Boyd had Bruce and Coach Jett 7th and 8th grade both. They followed him through it, and I don't know who the other coach was at that time taking the other group.
Oh, okay.
You know what I'm saying? Because then the other group would have
I think for a while it was Altemeyer.
Oh, maybe so.
I think like it was you had Bruce and Mark one year, and then the other year you had Altemeyer. Like maybe Altemeyer was 7th grade, and then Bruce and Mark were 8th grade, or something like that.
Could be
something like that.
But
So
Altemeyer coached high school basketball my freshman, sophomore, and junior year with Coach Williams.
Okay. I did not think about that.
So I don't know if he went back to middle school later on before he became principal. Maybe I don't know.
No, I don't think he ever went back and coached middle school basketball again. I don't actually even remember exactly when he got out of coaching. I think it was sometime after I was out, or I guess.
Well, he
wasn't there your senior whenever Vineyard was there.
Correct.
Right?
When Vineyard came in, I want to say Coach Seawalk, which was the JV or freshman coach, came with him from Sullivan, I think.
Yes, that's right. I remember Seawalk.
And then I want to say Coach West was also there our senior year as well. And so I don't know if he knew Danny somehow or if Danny...
So was Coach West like maybe acting as like a freshman coach or something?
So I think that's what it was. I think he was the freshman coach, and then Roger was the JV/assistant coach.
Seawalk's first name was Roger?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. And see, I never really got... did he teach somewhere, or was he just a basketball coach?
See, I don't know that either. I feel like I remember him at practice, but that's about it.
In Vineyard, wasn't he like a middle school PE coach or something?
Yeah. He's a middle school PE coach, and and he actually coached some of the 7th and 8th grade teams, or helped with some of their practices.
Okay.
Because they had basketball, I think, a different timeline from us, maybe. I don't know, but I remember he helped out with some of their teams because I think he had Boyd as a middle, or like maybe 4th, 5th, 6th grade.
Okay.
I remember
he was around for quite a while. Coach Vineyard was.
Yeah.
And then I know when he did leave, I believe he went to Herman, right?
Yeah, so he went to Herman. I don't know how many years he was in Herman, maybe 3 or 4.
Okay.
But it was the same years that Boyd was in high school.
Oh, so you got to
in
play
Herman.
against him.
Yeah, because he actually reached out to me a couple times and asked if I wanted to help coach up some of his bigs with him.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I went there, I think, during Christmas break one year and helped him a couple times. And I say help him, I probably enjoyed it more than anything. But
right.
and then the next year he kind of mentioned, hey, if you want to coach, I'll put the paperwork in if you want to help me out. But that was Boyd's senior year, and I was like, well, I don't want to miss Boyd's game because I'm helping you coach, So, but then the next year I was going to reach out to him again, and he took a job in Rolla, which I think he's still in Rolla now.
Okay.
As an assistant coach.
I believe that is correct because his wife, she was a middle school seat teacher for a while, and I think when she did leave, I think she left when they went to Rolla because I think they both teach at Rolla now or something like that.
Correct, and I think she's originally from St. James, that area. Somehow her family's from that area, so they're much closer.
Oh, to family and home and whatnot.
Because they actually have 2 kids. They have they adopted a kid, and then the same year they had another kid. So
oh wow,
kind of a surprise. It was kind of cool. I didn't know that till recently. He came and talked at church about that kind of mission deal, but it was kind of cool.
That's cool. So you still see Coach Vineyard at church sometimes?
No, he just came just to talk about. They were talking about just kind of adopting and just different.
Okay.
That, some of the churches support. So it was cool. I actually did not know he had an adopted kid until then. So
oh wow,
kind of good.
Interesting. Cool. Okay, so before we get into high school basketball, which we'll have a long discussion about high school basketball, but before we get into high school basketball, I know you said Christian Record played in middle school, and he did not play in high school?
Correct. He may have played his freshman year, but he didn't play
beyond
past that. And I don't particularly know why, because he was still pretty good.
Right.
I think he might have broke his wrist in middle school maybe, and somewhere along the way I think maybe he still played our freshman year, and I would argue he might have been better than me coming into high school, but I practiced all summer with the varsity team for their summer workouts, so coach put me on JV, whether that was, but anyhow, so I got to play JV, and so he would have been with Coach Gellert, coaching freshmen, and so I don't know, somewhere along the way he stopped playing, which a lot of people do.
Right, for sure.
So, but yeah, he was a beast in middle school.
Was there anybody else on those middle school teams that played that you remember playing with, have some good memories with, but they did not end up continuing to play in high school?
I know some other people that played. Derek Greenlow, believe it or not, played. He was always shorter, but he was always.
Well, I know Derek played baseball because whenever we were younger, Derek and I were always on the same OAA team. I think his dad and my dad were kind of helping coach it, I believe, at that time.
Yeah. I want to say Jimmy played for 1 or 2 years, Jimmy Lay.
Oh, yeah, Jimmy.
You had Coach Dave on here, Dave Coltman. He
Yep.
played. I think his first year was when my dad had the 2 teams in 6th grade, which I think part of it was we had so many Gerald kids coming in because I would have been their first year. So
that's true.
On that team, we had Joe Lindbergh, Justin Bedrosian, Coach Dave. Brad was on that team. Jacob Havicki, that was his 1 year of basketball.
Oh, nice.
And,
Papa Hobbs.
Yeah. Alex Pagan, I know you do with Alex. Maybe Brad Stutt might have been on that team.
That sounds about right. I went to some of your, I think, did Nick Green play with you guys a little bit?
I was thinking that maybe him and Perry might have both came out.
I think so because I can remember being a kid. I never played I played upwards basketball for a few years or something like that. But I can remember going to some of Perry and Nick's practices, and I remember watching Joe Lindbergh play. And I can remember at that time, I thought Joe was a beast at basketball. I thought he was really good.
Yeah, so I remember him obviously in 6th grade, and he actually tried out again. I can't remember if he played all the way through middle school until freshman year, but I definitely know he came out our freshman year, and then. I don't know if he kept going or not, but he was for his size, he was very coordinated and talented. He just, whether he didn't have the focus to stick with basketball or whatever, but if he would have played all the way through, I think he could have been
really good.
Very good, because he was just so athletic for basically the same size as me, but way more athleticism.
Yeah, I can remember those days going, because did you guys practice in Gerald sometimes, or where did you?
Yeah, in middle school? Yeah, we did. We coached.
Okay, because I think I remember going to a gym that I wasn't super familiar with and watching your guys' practice at some point.
Yeah, and that team was coached by my dad, Tom Lawmeyer, which is Van's brother.
Okay. I did not know that.
And then Brian Blau.
Okay.
I don't know if you know Brian, but he played high school ball, and he was really good. I know at that point in time, I don't know how old he would have been, but I know he could still dunk it.
Oh.
So that was always cool as a sixth grader.
Heck yeah. Absolutely.
So.
Okay, so let's transition into high school basketball. And one thing that I would like to make a note of is that you already mentioned it a little bit. You put in all that extra time before you even got, off-season stuff, before you even got to your freshman year, right? So that's how you got to Coach Williams put you on JV. Coming into high school, what was it like meeting Coach Williams from the get-go, and how did that relationship work for you guys? Yeah,
so obviously going from middle school basketball to high school is a different change of pace anyways, and I think arguably Coach Williams was known for having very intense, hard practices, and so I don't know that it would have made a huge difference, but I remember the summer, I don't think I've ever met him. Somehow Dad got wind that they were having just open gyms in the summertime, and so he just was like, hey, you ought to come up and go to it. So I don't know if anybody else told me that. I think my dad just kind of was like, hey, let's go. And so he dropped me off there, and I remember being so tired. We weren't even running to run sake, but just practicing just full speed all the time. And I'm sure I'm out of shape because it's summertime too. But I just remember being so just dead tired. And but yeah, he'd have practice, and I don't know if you can even do it anymore. But he'd have practice every day of the summer. Monday through Friday, every day. I don't know if he did it that year, but I know multiple years he would do morning practices and evening. So if you had a job and you couldn't go there in the morning, you could go there in the evening. Or if you wanted to sleep in till whatever time, you could go there in the evening. And so I don't even know if Misha would allow you to do that anymore. But at that point in time,
I'm going to be 100% honest. I don't know that Misha allowed it then.
Well, it's considered an open gym, so maybe that was partly why.
So this is a whole side note. The only reason I know this stuff is because I coached varsity baseball here for quite a while. But Misha defines open gyms quite literally as you are there, but you're instructing no one. You literally put the equipment out, and the players can do it on their own. The only time you're able to intervene is if somebody it looks like they're going to hurt themselves, which I think basically what it is some people are just like with anything in the world, they take advantage of something and they run kids way too hard, or they, expect them to be at their sport and not participate in other sports, so they ruin it. But the way open gyms are now, it's kind of why can a coach, if they're going to be there, not actually help? So
yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is, but the one thing that I think both you and I can say with certainty is that Coach Williams definitely put the time in. He put the time in, especially with basketball, because that was what he really loved. Mm-hmm. But if he's given 2 days in the summertime, he's not getting paid for that. He's doing that because he's competitive and he wants to help the guys get better at basketball. Yeah, for sure. And it was, and some of it was just part of it would be basketball, part of it would be we just do the ladder drills, work on footwork, just random stuff like that too. And I know that's one thing. Like I said, I've mentioned multiple times on this already, but I was extremely uncoordinated because I was about the same height I am now, probably was the same height, didn't have near the amount of muscle for that body size and the coordination. I had size 16s already at that point in time, shoe size. As a freshman? Yeah, I was wearing size 16s when I was 15, so you had a bigger shoe size than your age. Yeah, so very, very. Was still trying to grow into my height, right? Grow into it. So I remember your freshman year. How tall were you your freshman year? I'm 6'5" now, and I bet I was every bit of 6'3", 6'4" already. I don't think I grew much through high school outside of weight, but height. Was there a period of time in your life where you just kind of took off and you grew a whole lot in a short period of time? I think I was always one of the tallest kids throughout all of middle school, and maybe even before that, except for Christian. It was always Christian, then me, and then Woody was following us, Okay. In height. And then at some point in time, Christian and Woody stopped growing, and I kept growing. Somewhere middle school through high school. Because Christian was probably as tall as he is now, 6'2". Oh, early on. Early on, yeah. His nickname was Too Tall. I was going to say, middle school. I think of Christian now, and I see him quite a lot because he's still in town, and Christian is very tall, but he's not as tall as you for sure. You're definitely taller than him now, correct? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, definitely a couple inches. But anyhow, to your point, I don't know how much I grew in high school, but it couldn't have been much.
Okay, so coming to freshman year, you've made the point several times that you're very uncoordinated. Practices with Coach Williams, whenever you were doing, the summer stuff, 2-a-days, those were intense. But I'm sure that once the season started, if it was anything like baseball, and I know it was because Kyle Bauer's my best friend. I've heard all the stories. But once you actually got to the season, it had to really pick up in intensity.
Yeah. So like the summers were intense, and you said 2-a-days. Just for clarification, you didn't have to go to both or any, but
you had the option.
You had the option. So if you wanted to sleep in, you could. Or
he was putting in 2-a-days.
For me, I would go. Dad would drop me off at basketball because I'd stay with my dad in the summer, and then he'd pick me up, and then I'd go work on the farm with him during the day, and then like some of the other kids that didn't have to work, they'd sleep in and then go in later.
Right.
And so just all about what time you wanted to go in, but yeah. So then we got to end season, so we came out of football, and we came right into practice or tryouts, really.
What was the football team like your freshman year?
My freshman year,
were they good?
They were good. I don't remember how far they went, or if they even. I think they lost.
Early in districts?
I don't think they got out of districts that year. I don't believe, but that would have been
you were probably able to start basketball like on time that year.
Well, and I was a freshman, so I'd.
Oh, you went anyway.
I was going anyway, and so the first practice I remember, we were just running. There was no balls involved in the practice. We were just.
Oh yeah.
So he had different drills. You were diving for loose balls. You were doing suicides backwards, like backpedaling, and there was another drill just running laps or so. I don't know. There's 3 drills set up. I remember that, and I honestly think there were several seniors that didn't come out all summer to his open gyms, and so I honestly think he was just trying to run us to prove a point. Like, hey, if you're not going to show up, and then they all quit at tryouts.
Yeah. Except
for the 2 seniors we had in our team that year were
Collins.
John Keller. No, that was his junior year. So we had John Keller, Jared's older brother.
Oh, okay, yeah, I was going to say, my freshman year, I know Collins was a senior.
Yeah, so my freshman year would have been John Keller and then Jared Fritzmeyer. They both played football.
Okay.
So they didn't necessarily have to go to tryouts, but John had been coming all summer. I don't know about Jared, if he did or not. But anyhow, so we ran, and about halfway we took a water break. Somewhere in there we took a water break, and there was 4 or 5 seniors that showed up that just quit at that water break.
At the water break?
Yeah. And then I think we did some more drills, but sometime after they left, then we started actually picking up a ball and practicing. But it was definitely intense, and I was one that loved Coach Williams. I know some people didn't, but I responded well to his coaching.
Yeah.
So
it was one of those things. So I'll never forget, and I've told the story many times, but my freshman year, I loved baseball. Absolutely, that was like my thing. I still love baseball. It was my thing, but I had never played a sport that I had to be as physically active as what Coach Williams demanded. Mm-hmm. And I played football, but in football in middle school, you don't really run that much, I don't feel like. And then I hadn't ran cross country at this point, but I got into my freshman year of baseball. In my first week of baseball practice, I had heard all the horror stories from everybody about basketball. I'm like,
definitely from Bauer,
Bauer for sure. And then I get to the first week of baseball practice. I never ran that much in my life. My ankles just swelled up like balloons. And I remember I went to my dad, and I'm like, Dad, I actually don't know if I can physically do this. And then my dad, he told me one thing. He said, Tyler, I support you no matter what you do. If you decide you don't want to play, I'll support you. But just know that if you quit, it's going to be really hard if you ever want to actually go back. So if you quit, it's pretty much done. And I was like, ugh. So I stuck it out, thank God. I stuck it out, and I was one of those guys that Coach Williams ended up really liking, because I was like try hard all the time. I was always going to give him everything I got, even if I wasn't the most athletic. I'll never forget, it was my freshman year. I was so slow. I was incredibly slow. I had to be 10 times slower than you, Shane. I was an incredibly slow runner. But I knew I was slow. My ankles were already swollen, and we always had to run poles to start practice. And he'd give me a hard time the first week because I was so slow. I was finishing so after everybody. I was the last one on the team to finish. And we had to ride over. That was when we were still practicing in town at Memorial. Coleman Schaefer-Cutter was the guy I rode with. And whenever I got into his car, I already started putting on my cleats. So whenever I got to the field, I could get to the pole and start running before anybody else got out there. And then Coach Williams, when he saw me do that, he was like, I feel like he had a different level of respect for me after that. And he knew like I was going to try as hard as I could. And he did. He loved the guys that would do stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly it. I know we have to run timed sprints or suicides, whatever you call them, at practice, and he would always kind of yell at the faster guys because they would be coasting sometimes.
Yeah.
And still make time because I can't remember how many seconds it was. We had timed every time.
Everything.
Yeah, and so it would always be like me and Woody struggling to get back. But he didn't hardly yell at me and Woody that much because he knew we were.
Right, you were giving everything you had.
Yeah, but he would actually yell at the guys that were faster that weren't always,
Oh,
sometimes. Yeah. But I do remember, too, back to the summer deal, he gave us a jump rope. It was at the end of practice, one of the first practices I was at, and we were supposed to do so many different jump ropes on different legs and whatever, and my legs were just jelly. I couldn't hardly jump a rope to save my life, And he's like, here, take this home with you, And so the next time we did it, I was like 20 times better. And he just thought that was the coolest thing because I think mostly because I was just so jelly-legged I couldn't jump anymore.
Yeah,
and I
but
did.
He also knew you went home and tried.
I did work at it, but he just thought that was the coolest thing because I was so much better. But
right,
I was also in better condition. So.
I also went to his off-season workouts because I remember I was out in the weight. He would also do weight room stuff. So I remember being in the weight room with him. He was an intimidating guy in the weight room, especially as a freshman. I didn't know nothing. I wasn't very strong, and I'll never forget. We would do bench, and I was tiny. I didn't weigh 100 pounds my freshman year, so I could barely do any weight at all. Well, he'd always build you up, be like, "You can do this. You can do this. You can do this." And then once I started to do it, he would take the bar and push it backwards. I'm like, "What? I can barely do this," and you're pumping me up, and then you're also, but. It was all part of, I understood why he did what he did, you know what I mean? Another thing that I can remember from the weight room thing was he had Altemeyer one time, because Altemeyer worked with him, get his car. I think he drove an SUV or something at that time. And he, it's not a very big hill at all, but when you're going from the weight room back up towards the high school, there's a slight incline there.
Yeah.
He would make Altemeyer put his car in neutral, and we had to push his car up the hill. Yeah. But he had all kinds of stuff that was really unique that you just don't really see many coaches do stuff like that.
Yeah.
But and you're right, he did. There was quite a few guys that ended up quitting pretty early on, but I think he just wanted to make sure that the guys that he did have were diehards and they were going to give everything he had.
Yeah, he made that comment, and you've probably heard it before, but he would say, he said, I like my players like pizza. He's like, I like cold or hot. If it's lukewarm, it's no good. And basically, he was trying to say, if you're in, you're all the way in. Or if you're not in, then leave. I don't care. I'll still be nice to you at school. I'll be your best friend.
Right.
But don't play if you don't want to be here, basically was his mentality.
Yeah, he definitely lived by that.
And I don't know, too. Maybe he had the foresight of knowing that, Collins' class was so good that because we weren't that good in my freshman year, but my junior year, and I say, I was still on JV then, but my sophomore year, I think they were not very good all year, but towards the end we really got hot, and we made it to the district championship game, and they lost, but still was, I think he had the foresight of, hey, I want these guys that are bought in to be here.
Be the pioneers of the program, really.
Yeah, he's kind of building that culture.
Now, was that his first year too, your freshman year?
Yeah, his first year was my freshman year, which I think prior to that I think was Coach Jett.
Oh, okay. So you had him for 3 years then.
Yeah, because Andrew Jett would have been a junior, Coach Williams' first year. And
okay.
I think Coach Jett, I think
that's
Mark
right.
had him prior to that.
Yes.
So yeah, my freshman year would have been, the seniors would have been John Keller and Jared. And then the junior class, which I loved that class, it was Chris Collinsworth. Chris, yeah, I played
Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, Chris Collins. And then Andrew Jett, Wes Stammers, Ben Hempelman. And
that was a really great group. Yeah.
And then their senior year, we had Tim Cobb, the foreign exchange student, came over, and he was probably an inch shorter than me, but just played like a point guard. Kind of played like Andrew. Andrew was a bigger guy, not as tall but could dribble the ball, shoot it, whatever. And they both had that ability. So they had a really good class their junior year.
I felt so bad for I didn't get to interact with Tim Cobb a whole ton, but when I talked about how we had to push that car up the hill, I remember he was my partner when we had to push Altie's car up. And I don't know that less than 100-pound me did a whole lot of that work, but Tim pushed quite a lot of it. But yeah, you're right. That was a pretty good squad. And I can say that I was lucky that by the time I was a freshman in high school, I think all the basketball teams that I got to watch were pretty darn good. Collins' team, I thought, you said they got hot towards the end, and then junior year. Collins' senior year would have been your sophomore year.
Yeah, so their senior year, Collins' senior year, my sophomore year, I didn't play hardly any varsity. If it was, it was because we were winning or losing by a lot.
Came off the bench or something.
Yeah, but their senior year, they were really good, or I thought they were. I don't remember their record, but I just felt like they were always really good because Chris was on fire. I don't know how many.
Oh, he was so fun to watch shoot. He was a great shooter.
Yeah, and then Andrew and Tim were both hard to guard because of their size and ability, and then you had Wes and Ben Hippelman both just played hard as could be, and just
that was a fun team to watch. It really was.
Definitely Ben being undersized. He played post. He was our big guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know how tall he really is, but it seemed like he was always undersized, but he would just push people around. I mean, he was a middle linebacker in high school football and college football for that matter. So
he was just a tough-willed guy, honestly.
And Wes was similar, but he wasn't as big as Ben, or but he had the same kind of mentality, like
run through a brick wall type.
Yeah,
guy.
Take it personally if you
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then your junior year, who would have been the seniors on the basketball team that year?
My junior year, the only seniors would have been Matt Angel and Dustin DeBrock, which they also, Chris's senior year, they might have both started that year. I think they were starting as sophomores.
Yeah. So, Matt was really – I think Matt's senior year, didn't he have a cast on from football still? He, broke his arm or something?
I don't quite remember that, but I don't think Matt Angel did. He might have for very little time.
Brief time or something?
Now, Matt Jett did 1 year after one of our last games of the year. He broke his wrist.
Yes, I remember that.
But, yeah, Jett – now I think about it, I think Angel and DeBrock, I think they were too. They came to every single summer workout, and I think they both started their sophomore years along with Chris and Andrew and maybe Himpelman.
Yeah.
So their sophomore years all the way through they started. And
Dustin DeBrock, he would have been another hard-working guy that a guy like Coach Williams would have absolutely loved.
Loved Dustin, yeah.
Dustin was, he was all grit basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for him to be as good as he was at his height, and he was just a very good three-point shooter. And Angel was just an athlete, dribble the ball, get to the rim at any point. But, yeah, DeBrock was I remember one game, I don't even remember who we were playing, but the other team called the timeout, and it was we had 12 points, the other team had 10 points, and it was 10 points, whether, I don't know, call it Herman. 10 points Herman, 12 points Dustin. That's what Coach said because he had all our points. He came out and hit 3 or 4 threes in a row to start the game.
I don't know why this sticks in my head, but did he do something outstanding as a free throw shooter at the free throw line? Did he have some crazy streak or something?
He might have. I don't remember that, but it would not surprise me one bit if he did because he was just a very good shooter.
I don't know why I associate really good free throw shooting with Dustin DeBrock, but for some reason I do.
Yeah, Coach Williams also had this thing, the green light, and if you wanted to be able to shoot a three anytime you wanted, you had to stay after practice and shoot so many three-pointers in a row, hit so many in a row or so many out of a certain number of shots. And I know him and Matt
would always do that.
That and Chris, of course, could do whatever he wanted. But yeah,
right.
Yeah, Chris was very good.
Yeah, Chris was very good. Okay, so let's start talking about things started changing for you at some point because you talked about being uncoordinated early on, but it wasn't always like that, and it was I think it was a testament of how much work you put into it for one. But when did the confidence start to build for you that you could get the ball and dribble and take it to the rack and things like that?
Yeah, so I think just over the course of high school, I don't know exactly the moment necessarily, but somewhere between my junior year and senior year, part of it was I was building enough muscle to operate my body, So, and the coordination drills with whether it was football or basketball or even track for that matter. But somewhere in there, I started getting. I was decent my junior year, and then I think I got as good. Obviously, I was my best at my senior year. I really think if I would have been better or more confident my junior year, that team would have been really good. We actually had a lot better record my senior year, but my junior year, we had Matt Angel and Dustin DeBrock, me, Woody, Matt Angel, and Cooper, along with everybody else. But as far as if you think about basketball, a lot of people think about Matt Jett and Cooper and Angel and DeBrock, and so we could have.
You had a year that you had all those guys together.
Yeah, Cooper was a freshman now, but
yeah, but Cooper as a freshman is not your normal freshman.
Yeah, we had. I know I'm skipping all back and forth here, but I know we went to a summer camp whenever Nathan used to play basketball until he got hurt in football one year, and then I think he just focused on football to make sure.
But he was a really good basketball player too, wasn't he?
Correct. so I might have been our sophomore year or my junior year, but Ryan was going from 7th grade to 8th grade. And we went to a summer tournament, and Nathan got hurt or somebody else got hurt. So Coach Williams asked Ryan if he wanted to play with us. And he got in.
As a 7th grader?
Going into 8th grade. and he was out there, he stole the ball, got a loose ball, and then he made a shot, and everybody on the bench was like our bench. He's an 8th grader.
Nuts.
Yeah, and he's an 8th grader to the other team.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Ryan was good early.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an understatement. I had the pleasure of playing baseball with him, which I would argue, he was great at all sports, but I would say baseball was his best. And I can remember, this is a whole side story, but I started coaching, my first year coaching baseball, I was coaching in Bell. And we showed up to play at Vienna. And when we showed up there, I couldn't remember what Vienna's field looked like. And the reason I couldn't remember was because I hadn't been there, I think, since I was in middle school. It's myself, And we showed up, and Vienna's baseball field is funny because it's got a fence, and then there's another fence because there's a nursing home behind it. And then they didn't want the nursing home to get hit with baseballs, or maybe they have some sort of play area for kids over there. I have no idea. But there's 2 fences and then a nursing home. And I can remember whenever I was in 7th grade, which means Ryan would have been in 6th grade, he hit one on top of the nursing home. So over both fences and on top of the nursing home. I showed up with my Bell baseball team that day, and I was like, guys, you're not going to believe this, but I played with a guy that when he was in 6th grade, he hit one on the nursing home. They were like, no, you didn't. And I'm like, I know it sounds crazy, so I'm not even going to try to get you to believe me, but I promise you it really happened.
Yeah, if you weren't there, you would think it was an old wives' tale, yeah.
Yeah, so, okay, speaking of old wives' tales, were you a part of the basketball practice? I've heard this story from Bauer many times, and I got to find other people who can vouch that this actually happened. Apparently, Mr. Altmaier was getting on the team's case for something or another. Some play wasn't working or something like that. And in frustration, Ryan kicked a basketball. Have you heard this story?
Keep going. I'm not sure if I remember this.
Well, Altmaier's, going off, and then he gets even more angry because Ryan kicks this basketball. But they're on one side of the court, and the story that Kyle tells me is that the ball went in the hoop on the other side of the court, and everybody went nuts because it went in, and then Altmaier just had to walk away because it was so ridiculous.
That might have been after I graduated, because obviously Kyle and him had another year together after that.
Yeah, that is that's one of those stories that Kyle tells me, and I'm like, that is like the most Ryan Cooper thing ever. I felt like Ryan was just naturally good at a lot of things. Now, he put a ton of work in. He put a ton of work in, but he was also naturally very good, too.
Yeah, and then having an older brother like Nathan, also very athletic to compete against, I'm sure that definitely helped him.
I would love to have either Nathan or Ryan or both of them on the podcast at some point, but I'd also heard some story about whenever... So how many years... I guess Nathan would have been 3 full years older than Ryan in school.
Because he was a senior freshman.
I think it was like when Nathan was an 8th grader, he was pitching, and Nathan threw very hard as an 8th grader, and they had Ryan catch Nathan in the games because none of the other kids could catch Nathan, and Ryan was a 5th grader.
I believe that.
Which is just absurd when you think about it, but that's a unique situation. So you would say that your junior year, you think your basketball team was actually better than your senior year?
Well, we were definitely better my senior year. I'm saying
not record-wise.
If I developed a lot between my junior and senior year, I think even more. And if I think...
Oh, if you're you made the comment about your confidence.
Yeah, if I would have been as good down low and just a little bit stronger like I was my senior year, I think if I would have been that same player, if you took me off my senior year and put me on my junior year team with also having Jet and Cooper and Angel and DeBrock, that would have been a pretty good starting group with Woody too in there, however you want to throw in that 6.
Right. You guys were deep, too. That was the other thing. You had a couple guys off the bench.
Yes and no. We were...
Are you talking about your junior or senior year?
Yeah, so junior year, because we only had 2 seniors...
Okay. Everybody really was younger.
Yeah, so, all the depth was young, and we're all still learning and getting better. And my senior year, for context, the seniors would have been Derek Tyree.
Yep.
Which I don't think he played junior, but he played senior year.
Yep.
Philip Wiggers. And then me and Woody. And then the juniors would have been Kyle Bauer, Matt Jett.
Matt Herman,
yes. And then...
Ross and Jarrett,
yep. Which they both played quite a bit.
Yeah.
along with Matt.
And then your senior year, Ryan played that year, didn't he?
Yeah, Ryan
Or was
played
he
that year.
hurt?
No, he played that year.
I think Ryan was hurt my senior year.
Correct. I believe you're right.
Okay.
Yeah, he was hurt the year after. And then Matt put up crazy stats from what I heard. I think I only caught a couple of their games, but
I think he set the single game scoring record. He had like 46 or something.
something like that. Something like that.
Ridiculous. But
yeah, we had, I would say my senior year, we did a decent depth, because we had.
Those guys were a little bit older. They weren't quite as young anymore.
And basically, because that was Vineyard's, my senior year was Vineyard's first year coaching here.
So what was that like for you? Obviously, you had built this relationship with Coach Williams. You guys had, a lot of mutual respect for one another, I feel like. And then going into your senior year, obviously you're learning from a whole new person. You're changing your scheme and things like that.
Yeah, so, because I really liked Williams. I think Woody was probably the same way. And then I would say Philip probably liked Williams as well. And then Brad Smith also played freshman through junior year, and he didn't play our senior year, and I think it was part of
because Williams wasn't there.
Because and not that there was anything against Vineyard. I don't think he didn't met Vineyard before he made that decision, but he worked so hard
for Williams,
and he was never the best player. But obviously Williams knew how hard he was working and stuff. And he's like, I think Brad's like, well, now I got to prove myself, and because he was, Brad was never blessed with height or extreme
Brad
athleticism.
I am, I think.
But he would always give it a good go. So I think that was part of why he didn't come out senior year. Not that he ever said that, but I would guess that would play into it.
I'll have to ask him next time we're together now.
Yeah, but Williams or Vineyard came in, and I think we all hit it right from the get go with him, and he obviously did a good job. I want to say we only lost like 4 games that year.
I know you guys won over 20 or above.
Yes, I think
I know that.
I think somebody told me we were 20-4 in the regular season, and then we lost our first game of districts, which we had a bye. We were the one.
I know who it was against. It was Salem, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Yes, because Kyle has told me about that. That haunts Kyle. I know because I want to say Salem beat us in basketball my senior year too. I think it was back-to-back years.
Yeah, and there were some epic battles between. I think we upset Salem maybe my freshman year.
So
I remember.
Here's a question: why was Salem really good then?
No, they were the bottom seed of the tournament, and they got hot. They didn't have any post players really to speak of, and they kept shooting threes. So they pulled us all out wide, and they had one guy hit 5 or some threes in the first half. I don't know exactly.
So this was a great shooting game by them.
By them, they were up like 28 points, I think, going into halftime, and then we only lost by 1 point.
Wow.
So it was. We were definitely
an unbelievable comeback. Just fell short.
Yeah, we just came out flat, and I remember. I think I was in foul trouble most of the first half because I was trying to guard a quick guy, got around me, So they kind of took me out of the game.
Which
early
offensively, you probably would have been a huge help in that game, right? If they didn't have any posts.
I was never our dominant scorer, but I always got a lot of rebounds, so I think that was part of it, as well. And we made a good comeback, but that was a year we were set up to win districts. I mean, we were first. It was in Owensville. We hosted it.
It was even here.
We had a first round bye. And then we came out flat to start against the low seed of the tournament, one of the lowest seeds. I don't know if it was the lowest, but
wow.
And then we would have had to have played Elias, who was pretty good.
Yeah.
But I think we would have matched up with about anybody that year. We were in all of the games we lost. I think Matt texted me this one year, and this was way back. I was still in college, but I think we only lost to Borgia. I think we lost to Borgia twice that year, and that was the only team we lost to by more than 1 point.
Wow, and that says something too because Borgia was dominant during that time frame. They were so good.
They won state that year by like 20 something. But yeah.
Yeah, they were good.
Yeah, we lost to them in the regular season in the Washington tournament, and then we lost to them in the regular
Turkey tournament, was that what it was?
No. We didn't play it that year. I think the last year my group played in the Turkey tournament was the year we went to state in football because nobody was back for the Turkey tournament. Right. So it was only
I remember that cuz that would have been your sophomore year because I think Kyle, as a freshman, played some in that.
Kyle, Jared, and Ross, all three
had nobody.
Played varsity, and Brad Smith.
Yeah, because you wouldn't have been able to play, right? Because you were with football, weren't you?
All the sophomores, even though I didn't play much on that team, I was only a sophomore.
Right.
We were all still going to practices, and it was pretty neat. We got to go to state with the team and everything. But And the way it worked out, I got to play the whole fourth quarter because we weren't doing very well. So,
well, Harrisonville was no slouch, that's for sure. So, so overall, what would you? How would you sum up if you had to put it into a nutshell or just a sentence? How would you sum up your career playing basketball here at OHS?
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it. A lot of good memories with all the teammates over the years and all the different coaches we had. Like I said, really got along with Vineyard, got along with Williams very well, and still, to this day, I hang out with Woody. Well, can't say we hang out that much more than we have kids, but still talk to Woody on a pretty regular basis, and still consider the rest of that class as well. Some of the younger ones, some of my better friends. So,
absolutely. One last question I want to ask about basketball: have you come back to mini game? Well, you were here a lot when Boyd was in school.
Yeah.
So one thing that I will say that I have noticed is that it's one of those things where it's hard to say for sure because maybe I just have a distorted memory because I was in high school at the time. But I can remember the gyms then. I thought they were packed for home basketball games. I know it's probably a product of the team was did really good. I think back then we still had Jam the Gym. That was a thing. Mm-hmm. But I feel like the gymnasium then was packed whenever we had a home basketball game, whereas I don't think that we've had home basketball game attendances like that since we were in school.
Correct. Like I said, I came a lot when Boyd was in high school, and came a little bit after that. But yeah, it just seemed like there was a lot bigger crowd when we were in high school, and maybe we didn't have a good. Like I said, we were winning a lot my senior year, so that probably helped some. But I even think whenever our freshman year, whenever Chris's class, he was a junior, we weren't winning a lot of those games, and I still felt like we had a big gym.
Yeah, and I tell, obviously as a teacher, I tell a lot of students stories about that and whatnot. I'm like, you guys don't know what a full gym looks like. I can remember it being completely full, and I don't know. I hope we get back to that at some point. I think. You and I both were people that were very school-spirited when we were in high school, and that was something that was important to us, and I think our classmates echoed it. So you touched on it a second ago. I do want to talk about football real quick, keep this thing going on. You did get to go to the Dome and play. What was that season like for you, and what was that experience like with that group of guys?
Yeah, it was really neat. That season, I think we were not necessarily a very good team, but then I want to say we were 2-5 going into districts.
I've heard a lot of stories about that that team because I believe Coach Crow, he was friends with my father-in-law, and my father-in-law tells me stories about how he had the bow shop, and Coach Crow would come talk to him and be like, the record's not good, but I'm telling you, this team, if they can figure it out, they're going to be good.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. Part of it was the sophomore class. We already touched on them earlier. They were very talented and pretty physically gifted, but they were still only sophomores, or I guess juniors at that point in time, not the sophomore class, the junior class. And so they were still figuring it out. And then the seniors, there was a lot of really good players on that team as well, maybe not as naturally gifted as some of the class behind them, but finally towards the end of the season, the junior class really got, put it all together. And then the senior class at that point in time, some of the same people, Wes Stammers and Ben Hempelman, and I want to say Gus might have been a senior that year. Chris Meyer.
That was whenever Barndollar was a senior, right?
Yeah, Joe Barndollar was on that team. Ben Barndollar was a junior. But yeah, there was just several. It felt like the senior team just had that in their gut, like we're not done playing football yet. We don't want to be done playing football. And then the class behind them was really putting all together all their talent, and it just kind of hit at the right time. And
I hear a lot of people, and this goes for really all sports, especially like in a school our size, it feels like you have to have 2 grade levels back to back that have it to be able to make it far like that. And obviously that team is a perfect example of 2 back-to-back years where they were very solid, group of players.
Yeah. Yeah, it was very, I think that's what it was. And then you came to my senior year of football, and really none of us hardly played anything behind that class ahead of us. So we were very underwhelming as a team my senior year. Honestly, I think Duncan got some time playing a little bit of varsity maybe, and I know Cooper obviously did.
Was Duncan still a running back your senior year?
Yes.
So how does a guy like Duncan, though, get playing time at running back behind Brett Nelson, Philip Shoemaker, and that group of guys?
Yes.
Like, he's just not going to play much.
Yep. Yeah. And then there was Clayton. Was it
Havaki?
Havaki. He was on the team that went to state.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That's such a cool memory even for me. I wasn't on the team, but I was in the stands watching that, and I'll never forget. We wore up the opening kickoff because Matt Angel took it to the house, right?
Yes.
And then I think they scored right away.
Yeah.
And then I think we scored again on a touchdown pass to Matt Angel, right?
Correct. So it looked good early.
So it was like 14-7, and then Harrisonville just poured it on after that, I think.
Yeah, we were down quite a bit at half, I think. I want to say that because we had both girl kickers that year, right? We had Stephanie Chapman and Brooke in my class. I think they both scored so we must have kicked. Did we kick a field goal, or maybe we had two extra? Oh, they
Each
both got an
point.
extra point because they both got their name, in for girl, first females to score
So,
points.
okay, here's a question for you. Now that I've had time coaching and whatnot, what was the morale with the coaches like going into that game? Do you feel, or even as the players, did you feel like you knew that Harrisonville was like that good, or did you go into it thinking like if we play really good, we have a really good chance?
So my feeling, and like I said, I didn't play any on that team because I definitely wasn't as good as the guys ahead of me. But my feeling, kind of just being at all the practices, obviously, is we were on such a roll. That team was so hot that we knew they were good, but we're like, oh, we can do this,
Yeah.
And so I think that was more of the thought was, oh, we got it, we can do it. And definitely when you score on the opening kickoff.
Yeah.
But yeah, they were. I know it was definitely. I don't know if intimidating is the right word, but we walked out with our 40 or 50 guys, how many ever guys on a football team, and they had like from the 20 to the 20.
Oh yeah, it was
solid with like 3 rows of people.
Yeah, it was crazy how many people they had on that team.
They had dressed out. Obviously, they probably didn't all play. Well, they might have late in the fourth quarter, but
yeah, there was a lot of them though.
Definitely, yeah.
Was there anybody on that team that you remember that like went on to play at a high level in college or pro?
I don't know how well they did. I didn't necessarily follow their college career as I was still in high school, for a couple of years. But I know Ben Himpelman played at
I'm
Missouri
talking about
Valley.
from Harrisonville.
Oh, I don't know. I couldn't
Don't
even
know.
name a player on their team.
Okay.
Yep.
I didn't know if it was like one of those, like we just got to play and we got knocked out of districts a few years ago by the star wide receiver from Mizzou now. His name is escaping me right now. That's going to drive me nuts. You know who I'm talking about?
You as in, the high
Dutchman,
schoolers.
not me.
I'm like, you've been in high school for a while for that kid to just
Oh,
not be
no,
in
no,
college.
no.
Yeah.
Who's the star Mizzou wide receiver? That's going to drive me nuts. Anyways, he was ridiculously good, and when we played them, it was evident that he was that good.
Yeah.
I didn't know if there was anybody like that on that Harrisonville team that you could remember. But okay, one thing that I want to bring up is I know you got to see it earlier, unfortunately. But Shano and I, we were friends in high school. I would say that that wasn't the picture I wanted to show. I want to show this one. This picture has resurfaced for me more times than I would like to admit. Now that I'm a teacher, kids find that they find it hilarious. But I bring this up because I want to make a couple points. The first one being that we did not do very good as women. We shouldn't be women. It's kind of funny now because we don't have spirit days like that now.
Yeah, what was the spirit day to dress up as a
I'm
woman?
pretty
or something,
sure-
or opposite sex day?
Yeah, I think it was opposite sex day.
Yeah.
But I do have a really funny story from that day that I would like to share. But I brought this picture up because we were both very involved in school spirit. I believe you had the spirit hat, right? I think you gave me the spirit hat.
I don't think so because I was always playing sports, so I would have never.
Would have been Derek
cheering.
then?
Tyree, maybe.
Maybe Derek gave it to me because you know what I'm talking about. It was that orange like shaggy hat.
Yeah, whether it was Derek or maybe Tanya or
Well, there was a boy and a girl.
Klausner. But I was never not playing a sport,
Okay.
so I wouldn't have had it. You know what I'm saying?
Okay, that makes sense. But as far as being participating in school spirit and whatnot, I know that you always did a great job in that, and I think that's part of the reason why so many people looked up to you. You had so many, you had good relationships. I feel like with every single person you met. which I commend that really well. But the one thing I wanted to say about this, first off, on the left, that's my cousin Perry. I believe he's wearing a black wig. That's me in the middle. That's actually my hair. I had long hair at the time. And then I don't know where you found that wig, Shane, but that's the ugliest wig I've ever seen.
So I'm just going to go on a limb and say that it was something we found in Randy Blimke's basement. So it was Randy and the Atkinson sisters, and there were several others, but Tanya was one of them. We would go to Tom and Bev Blimke's house all the time because they lived so close.
Right.
And they would always be doing something, dress up. They had so much stuff in their basement. I'm gonna guess
that's where that came from.
Another oddly similar memory is one time I think we were skipping out on some kind of school dance, and they're like, "Well, we're only gonna go if we could talk Shane into dressing up as a girl to the dance." So I let him talk me into it, and I think I even made Ultemeyer dance with me. I tried to get him to. But I don't know that.
So this wasn't a one-time deal for you.
Second time. Yeah, I hate to admit that, but yeah, I definitely. Those days, I was always up for a good laugh or a joke. So if somebody could, it wasn't very hard to talk me into doing something to make
silly,
a good laugh. So.
Well, my story about that. So those jeans were actually, I think we did a thing where I chose a girl and I switched my clothes with her and she switched her clothes with me. At that time, I was very tiny, obviously, but I switched with Sam Ocello, and she came over that morning and had these clothes, and I, put them all on, and I can remember I had never worn skinny jeans like that in my life. I just remember they were like suction cup to my body. They were so tight.
Well, yeah, Sam was very petite.
Sam was tiny too. And I remember, because I don't know a single thing about girls' clothing, but I know that they were size 0 jeans, and I've told people that before. I'm like, holy crap, you were really small. And I'm like, yeah, I was really tiny, which that would have been my junior year. But anyways, I'll never forget this, and I don't know if you definitely don't know this story. I don't think I've ever told you this, but I was walking down towards the math hallway, and I was wearing that. I looked like that. I just had this really strange feeling come over me that I felt like somebody was looking at me. It just made me so uncomfortable. And I turned around, and Jordan Robertson was behind me, and he dropped his books and was like, "Oh my God!" He's like, "I was just checking you out. I thought you were like a new girl or something." I was like, dude, I could feel your eyeballs looking at me. It just made me so uncomfortable.
Oh, now you know.
But anyways, the next thing I wanted to pull up here, I had 2 images here that I thought would be cool to share. And this one was me, you, Jacob, and Cody Ellis. I can't remember what concert we were at. Do you know?
I want to say it was Styx. Does that sound right?
I did go to Styx. So that would that probably does check out. I think that probably is right. But I brought this because just like we talked about earlier when you were in college, dude, you had such a huge friend group. I mean, your friend group and your senior year was so cool. You had so many cool people in your class that you graduated with. Well, I can't say any crazy memories. I know you have a ton that stick out, but I know we have a very shared friendship with Jacob Havicki, and just so many people from your grade. Randy, I have very good friends with Randy, but what can you say about your classmates, I guess?
Yeah, I thought from top to bottom our class was always very easy to get along with, intertwined, well. And part of it, I think, it didn't matter what clique you were in. I felt like we all meshed well together, and for the most part, we didn't have too many bad apples in our class, and kind of made it easy going. But for whatever reason, between, Randy and Brooke and Tanya and, Kayla and Lindsay and Sierra, who's a teacher here as well, I believe. And several people that were very involved in the school, even if it wasn't sports, and then guys the same way. I mean, you mentioned Jacob and Jordan Robertson and Klausner and Tyree, who's still
Jimmy
somewhat involved.
Yeah, there was so many.
Epstein, and you had Holbein. You talked about him.
Holbein, yes.
Kopelman and Brad.
Kopelman, yeah.
You had a big group of people everybody got along with, and I was kind of fortunate. I got along with from my parents both my dad and my stepdad both farmed, so I kind of got in with the ag program and the ag kids. I got along with them. I got along with some of the more book smart people, and the sport sports people. I kind of just was in with everybody a little bit, so
Right.
made it very fun, and maybe that made it easier to talk to every group. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely enjoyed Owensville High School. I don't know if everybody does, but I thought it was a very fun experience.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think your guys' grade, I'll never forget, it was the first day of school. Your guys' grade went all out on the first day of school wearing orange and black. And I know Tanya and those girls really spearheaded that too.
Yeah, Tanya and Klausner both. They were both very big into school spirit. In basically me and Jordan and Woody and Tyree, it seemed like we would, whatever they wanted to do, we were like, oh, cool,
You would just go along with it.
Cheddar, another one. He was a big
Cheddar, yes.
spirit guy. He might have, one of the funniest things about Cheddar, Nick Chetty, it was after one of our basketball games, and I want to say it was my senior year when Vineyard was coach, and we had a game the next day, and he saw Cheddar in the hallway of the games. He's like, "Now don't be getting these guys in trouble, or don't be make sure these guys stay out of trouble." And Nick's like, "You think they're gonna listen to me?" Not that we had anything planned, but just the fact
that he was talking to Cheddar.
Yeah, Cheddar was the ringleader of all of us, so that was
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Cheddar is another just awesome dude. Absolutely love Nick Chetty. About as good as they come. So many guys like that in your grade, and Woody, and oh man, it was just. I was, as a junior, I was really sad to see your guys' grade go, because it was so much fun. But
that's kind of how I viewed the Ben Hempelman, Wes Stammers, that grade there, Andrew Jett even. But there, I'm sure I'm forgetting it, but I just remember as being in high school, I really was like, when that class was leaving, I'm like, dang, that was kind of the heart and soul,
Right. Yeah, and I always like to make a few points during my podcast, because I do know that I have some high schoolers that listen to this, and I think basically what me and you just said is that even if you're a senior in high school or a junior in high school, the grades that are below you, whether you know it or not, they do look up to you at least in some degree, and you set the example for them. So I feel like your guys' grade really set the example for our grade as far as school spirit goes, and we tried to carry that on. And I think if you talk to any teachers at OHS now, you would see that they think that school spirit isn't what it used to be, basically. So if you're listening to this and you're a younger student here at the high school, find a senior or find an older student to look up to. And if you're an older student, be that example for the ones below you. But
yeah, I think there's something to be said there. Is if you're a senior, don't be afraid to be a fool. I think a lot of things is a lot of seniors just they don't want to be too cool for it. Like, oh, I don't want to dress up. I'm too cool for that. But it's definitely makes your high school more fun if everybody just jumps in and
absolutely
has a good time. And yeah, that's for sure.
And another thing, I don't know if you knew this or not, but Mr. OHS doesn't exist anymore.
No, I did not know that.
That was a perfect example of both of us making fools of ourselves.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. I owe that all to, I won one year. I guess my junior year I won that.
Yeah.
And we did the More Cowbell skit.
Yes.
And Jimmy Lay was there. He was the one, yelling, "I got to have more cowbell," the Christopher Walkens of it.
Yeah.
But Jacob really saved the day because he could play guitar, and him, Zach Lucas, Cody Ellis,
probably.
Who else? I'm forgetting.
Did they play "Don't Fear the Reaper" for you?
Yeah. Nick, it might have been Nick Shea was in there too. Maybe I'm not 100% sure. Maybe Matt Creek, but yeah, their group played it all. So it was all live music, which was actually really good.
So it was legit.
And then it was Jimmy, and me acting a fool up there, and I'm just, beating around on the cowbell. So that was a good time. I think Randy had a copy of that at one point in time.
Yeah.
That was fun. I think you won it the next year, didn't you?
Yep. So you passed down the Mr. OHS to me, and then you also passed down, I think you were Winter Homecoming King too, weren't you?
I was. I think that was the first year they had it. Not that makes a difference, but yeah, won that somehow or another. But
yes. I'll never forget, and I actually still have it somewhere, but I don't know if you remember. I think now they do like a crown that gets passed down every year or something like that. My senior year, you gave me a torch.
Yeah.
I still have that torch.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember that. It was the first year. It's so odd because like in football, and prior to that, they always just did whoever you walk with if the girl wins.
Right.
So I think I want to say Talia was Griffin. I can't think of her last name.
Garver.
Was Garver. Now it's Griffin. It's that backwards. She won that year.
Yeah.
And I don't remember who won. Well, I'm sure you do. Your year.
Who the girl was?
Yeah.
I want to say it was Rebecca Schaefer-Cutter, probably. I think that's who it was.
It could be. Very
I
well.
believe that's right. Okay, let's transition here. We're already pretty deep in this, but I figured that would happen because we're both talkers.
Yeah, I was afraid if I got too many tangents, which I did, that it would.
But let's go ahead and let's talk just a little bit about you graduate Owensville High School, you move on, you go to UCM. Another unique thing, we both went to UCM. And it was hilarious for me because as I got there, I started noticing, like, holy crap, every single person here knows who Shane Nix is. But what was your experience like at UCM? And you went there all 4 years, right?
Correct, yep.
So that's a little bit different than me. I went there my junior and senior year because I went to East Central first. So by the time I had gotten there, you had already, met 3 years worth of people.
Yeah, and I was a year ahead of you, so yeah,
Yes.
it would have been 3 years. You're 2 years at school. And I definitely think that makes a difference on meeting people. Because when you go there as a freshman, and I'm not saying this is the way to go, because there's definitely merit in going to a community college and saving money, especially with ECC down the road. But anyhow, it definitely makes a difference on campus. I met a lot of people as a freshman, and as a freshman, most people are looking to make friends because they also don't know anybody.
Right, you're all in the same situation.
Yeah, if you are, particularly if you're a senior listening to this and you're thinking about going to college or you've already made that decision. You can also be a freshman and keep your door closed and play video games by yourself and not meet people. So definitely the more you keep your door open and chat with people, the better.
If you're going to take the plunge and go to university, then you should be doing that and meeting people and,
get involved in all the clubs and the, intramural sports if that's your thing. If sports isn't your thing, there's many of other organizations.
Clubs and stuff, yeah.
But yeah, so I actually end up going there because of Klausner. So he went there as his podcast. I think he said that, for ROTC, and he was just like, hey, I'm going to go tour UCM this week. Do you want to go with me to ride with me? So me and him and both of our moms, I believe, or maybe that was a different trip. They came with us. But we went over to UCM to tour it, and you probably remember him. I think his name was Houseworth.
Matthew Houseworth.
Yeah, he was the recruiter. And anyways, sat through that, and I'm like, I guess I'm going here now. He was a heck of a, and
he was a good salesman.
Yeah, that's what Ethan said. I think he said it, and he's like, that guy could have sold you anything.
Yeah, I think so. He was good.
But I went there for business, and then after a year of being there, I switched my major to Agri-Business. As growing up farming, I thought that might be more
your thing.
Practical. Yep. So did that, and freshman year I was in every club I could possibly be in. Roomed with Klausner. Could have, and we had friends across the hallway. We actually had, we had to share one of those you had to share a bathroom.
Community bathrooms, yeah.
You had two people, a bathroom, and then two people, suite mates. And so the people across the hallway, they threw all their beds in one room, and then they set the other room up with two big screen TVs, all the sofas, all the mini fridges. So we had like a party room directly across the hallway from me.
Nice.
If you wanted to stay up and be late or be loud, you could stay up late. Not. And then they had another room where they all slept. So, but Klausner was a saint for putting up with me because he had to get up every morning at 5:30 or 6, and
because he did his military RTC stuff.
Yeah,
right?
and I think it was 3 days a week they had to get up and run at like 5:30 in the morning.
Oh my gosh!
Freshman year, randomly, I didn't have to get up. I think my first class was 11 or 11:30, so I was never going to bed early.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we worked out well, but yeah, it was definitely I'm sure if Ethan put up with a lot of waking up in the middle of the night and different things. But,
that's all part of the experience, though. So you end up graduating from UCM, and then you graduated with a degree in business, correct?
Agricultural business. With a minor in marketing. So it was ag business degree.
In marketing.
And then I had marketing as a minor, and I just enjoyed it so much. I said, I'm going to keep it. I kept taking those classes.
Okay. And you stuck with that career field. What was the first job that you had whenever you got out of college?
First job out of college, I went to work for a company called Cargill. They're a big ag company. They have a ton of different business units, but the one I was in was their ag was their grain business. So they buy and sell grain. So like the corn fields you see out here or the soybeans, they buy the commodity, and then they'll sell it to an end user or make it into a final product. But I was basically working with farmers in northern Indiana, fairly large farmers mostly, that wanted to sell contracts like a year or 2 years out. So they were forward contracting, just like you can buy stocks on the stock market.
Yeah.
I was working with farmers that wanted to like hedge their grain prices a year or 2 years out.
Because they assumed it would be higher later on.
Or lower. So they wanted to lock in the profit that was there. Like if the price was at a year out was good, they wanted to buy an option to protect it. So in case the price went down, they would still make money.
I get what you're saying.
That was kind of my role. I wasn't the one setting the prices at the grain elevators where people were bringing in grain. I was helping them kind of manage their contracts as far as this is the price you're looking for. Here's a certain set of options you can buy or sell to get to that price. And a lot of it was, there was some in season, but a lot of it was a year, 2 years out forward contracting with basically guys wanting to lock in their profit. You know, if they knew fertilizer cost this much, my rent's this much, I want to book this price before the price drops, or
okay. So it's kind of like in a way, it's a safety type thing for them.
Yeah. That's the hedging side of it. You know, some other people can speculate on it and take on more risk buying and selling contracts just like you would in the stock market. But most of the farmers are they own the grain, so they're hedging their risk.
Okay.
So I started with Cargill, worked in Lafayette, Indiana, where Purdue is, for 6 months as doing a training program. Then they moved me up to Portage, Indiana, which is just north of Valparaiso, would have been the college there, off of Lake Michigan. So I was buying grain from farmers that they would deliver to a facility on Lake Michigan where they would dump grain. They could send it out through the lake systems, like all the way out to the Atlantic Ocean by going through all the lakes.
Oh, wow.
Which they didn't do that very often, but they could also take stuff into rail into Chicago, or we could send stuff up out on truck. So we had 3 different markets we could hit. Or a lot of times they would take barges through Lake Michigan, through Illinois River, down eventually through the Mississippi and all the way to the Gulf for export. So a lot of different options. The problem was we're kind of, at that facility, you have a long way to go to get to the Gulf, or you're kind of the last. So you're working against freight. But anyhow, that's a whole nother podcast. But I did that. That was very, very interesting. I got to go to Chicago a few times. I wasn't very far from it.
So what do you do now?
So now I'm working for Waymeyer Seed is who I work for.
Waymeyer's from around here?
So my boss actually graduated from Owensville High School. It's Katie Waymeyer's uncle.
Okay.
He has a seed company in Illinois, and basically they have 3 different business units. I mostly work on the seed sales side of things, but they have one business unit that basically companies can contract out production. So like the stuff they're going to sell, Waymeyers would talk to a farmer, get them to grow that certain bean or corn, bean for our sake, and then they would bag it to sell to other farmers. That's kind of the simplest stage of it. Then they also belong to the Ag Venture Network, which is basically a group of independently owned seed companies across the U.S. that sell corn and soybean seed throughout the U.S. And so they sell strictly in the west or eastern half of Missouri and western half of Illinois.
Okay.
And then they also own, this hat I'm wearing now is Agri-Max. So they started that company in 2009, which is a wheat seed. And so he started that company in 2009, and they're a top 3 wheat brand in that short amount of time, and they're the largest family-owned wheat company. So for softwood wheat, so pretty cool story when you think about the owner of it. Graduated from Owensville High School, grew up down on Rosebud Road. So pretty cool deal there. I started working for them would have been 2015, and so honing in on.
So wow, you've been there almost 10 years.
Yeah, I'll be coming on 10 years for long. So,
which also means we are getting ridiculously old quick.
Yeah, for sure.
That's awesome. So 10 years. So I am coming on. This is my 8th year of teaching. So yeah, we've kind of settled into our spots, man.
Yeah. I definitely have a lot of respect for all of the teachers, the time it takes. Definitely, those that are doing, whether it's coaching or extracurricular activities.
It's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. What would you say is, last question I'll have here about your career, basically, what would you say is the biggest misconception people have about agriculture?
I don't know. There's a lot of them out there because there's so few farmers that
Right.
people that farm
Have to do a lot of it.
and we're so many generations from, I'd say all of our grandparents, our great grandparents probably farmed, but so our parents were always one or two generations from
Right.
a farm, or not all of us, but most,
A lot of people, yeah.
So I think the farther we get away from that, the more the misconceptions come on there. But in general, most farmers are trying to do a good job. They're not trying to, there's all kind of different theories, like all farmers just, I don't know. There's all kinds of different things, but
I can honestly the only real I would say day-to-day contact I've had with farmers was whenever I was working for Fastenal in Columbia, because farmers would come in a lot when they had to buy stuff for like replacement parts for their tractors or things like that. And what I know about farmers is that I think it's a lot more of a stressful job than people give it credit for.
yeah, so I would definitely agree with that. It's, most farmers, specifically in this area, because you have a lot of smaller farmers that are doing multiple things. Like you have a lot of farmers that are raising cattle,
Yes.
managing the grass, whether it's cutting hay or pasturing it off, but also raising crops, whether it's corn, soybeans, wheat, milo. So they're kind of set up for two different things, and they're working around the clock to get both done.
Right.
You get into big, wide open country. You have some very large crop farmers that work extremely hard in the spring and extremely hard in the fall, and then they're busy. They kind of run maybe closer to normal hours.
In like the winter.
Yeah, but they might also work 80 to 100 hours a week for a short period of time, trying to get their crops in on a very timely manner, and trying to get it out before the weather, takes that crop from you, whether it's a, storm blows it down, or, if you're on a creek or a river bottom, the river floods it. So most farmers, particularly around here, are working hard and trying to do a good job of what they do.
I think a lot of people, and myself is included in this, we don't really think about how the food that we get really gets to our table.
Mm-hmm.
And it really, it has to start at the farming level, obviously. But once, all this grain is harvested, where does it really go from there? What happens?
Yeah, so there's multiple different end users that will buy it, whether they're going to take corn and make it into some kind of chips, or they're going to make it into tortillas. I know out west there's a lot of corn that gets basically exported to Mexico. They take a lot of it. Some of your corn gets into feed, whether that's hog or cattle, soybeans. Sometimes they use the oil for different things. If you look on any ingredient, you almost always find soy oil.
Oh, that's true, yeah.
That's in a lot of things. Some of that byproduct that they don't use can be reused for cattle feed. So there's a lot of things that go into it. Obviously the most close to home, or closest you get to the farm to your table, is whether you're buying beef or pork or chickens or eggs. That's going to be your easiest one to think about,
right?
Because a lot of the produce you're getting at the store is, like sweet corn. That's not what you see growing in all these big fields. It's just regular corn.
Where does sweet corn come from?
You can grow sweet corn in a field. I didn't mean that, but just the
generally that's not what people are growing here.
They're just growing, just regular corn. Sweet corn is you don't make as much per acre. It's hard. It's a little harder to manage, and you harvest it while it's still on ear. Whereas combine, like if you're raising regular corn, you run a big combine through it. The machine threshes it out.
So while people like to eat sweet corn, it's a small fraction of like actual corn produced.
Oh, I don't know what the number would be, but it'd be a very small percentage. Definitely in the Midwest, I would say you get to other areas that, like California is a big produce state. They grow a lot of vegetables. Whether it's
probably
tomatoes.
Just because their climate, whatnot, really allows for it, right?
Correct. I think that's part of it. There's actually a lot of tomatoes grown in northern Indiana. I found that out when I worked there. They have some pockets of real sandy soil that's irrigated, and I guess that's what it takes for tomatoes. There's different apple orchards around here. There's some peach orchards over in Illinois would be a spot. That's a different type of farming, but trying to think about it that way. But yeah, I think ever since COVID hit, there's kind of been a different take. There's been a lot of people reaching out for getting beef or pork or
locally,
farm fresh eggs from local people. It's definitely easier to do that on that side than the produce side, because on the produce side, it's coming from smaller gardens, and it's seasonal. The big retail stores, like they have fresh lettuce this time of year. It's getting grown somewhere
not here,
and somewhere it's warm. So
right.
So it's kind of interesting there, but
Well, Shane, I really appreciate you coming on the podcast. I think we could do an entire podcast just on what you do as a career because there's so much that I think I'm a perfect example of a person who just really doesn't know. You know what I mean? So hearing that kind of stuff is very interesting to me. But I think we're an hour and a half into this deal here. Do you have anything that you would like to leave the people who might be viewing this or listening to this with? I always ask that at the end of my podcast.
I guess in general, for one, to start off, if I forgot you, there's several classmates I'm sure that I should have mentioned, or hopefully not teammates I forgot, but didn't mean to do that intentionally for sure. And as far as advice, if you're in high school, just be involved as much as you can, whether you're still in high school or getting ready to go to college. Don't be afraid to be yourself or go do something fun, afraid of what people are thinking about you. If you're out of college going into that life stage, I'm not too far ahead of you, only I guess 10 plus years out of college, but definitely don't have all the answers there. But get involved, do what you want to do, go places before you have kids for sure, and
that's a whole other podcast in itself, having kids.
Yeah,
I
know.
We can talk about that for a long time.
I know I've mentioned to you in the past about wanting to coach, but I'm like, anymore with kids, like I'm sure I'll coach their teams as they get older. But the coaches around here that find time to be with the kids and be away from their families and sacrifice that. Growing up, you just take that for granted.
As a player, you take it for granted that they're giving you this time, but. I mean, I'm in the same boat. I would love to be coaching baseball and things like that, and I will again someday at some point. And I think those things are super fun, but Coach Kendra always says you got to put your big rocks first, and big rocks is definitely family. So.
Yep. Yeah, it might be different when your kids are older. It might have more time.
100%.
Same, but anyhow, I rambled again. So next thing you know, we'll be here for 2 more hours. So
That's true. Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in to our first ever video podcast. And thank you, Shane, for being the guinea pig for the first video podcast. You're officially the best looking dude that's ever been on the video podcast.
That might be the last time you get to say that to me. So,
all right. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I usually have my song all queued up and ready, but I don't even know if I'm going to do the song on the outro of the video podcast because I don't really know how to end this thing. So, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.